everybody. Welcome back to this. I'm your host, Shauna Griffiths. And today's Real Talk is with two next-gen leaders who are phenomenal. I love these ladies. They are doing big things at the early part of their careers. So we're going to introduce today Jayme, Floyd, and Skylar Whitman. And I guess I'll just turn it over to you right away to ask you to introduce yourselves.
Sure. Perfect. Happy to be here. I'm Sky. I am originally from Potomac, Maryland. I went to the University of Tampa, started there in 2014, was a communications major, had no idea that working in sports was even a thing at that point. Was working part-time in radio promotions and knew I wanted to work in like some form of entertainment, which through some networking got connected to the former Washington Redskins, and then connected to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where I did my first job in sports, which was a part-time role with the corporate partnership staff on game days, my senior year of college. And I feel like we all have that kind of moment where you get like, you dip your toes in the water with sports and all of a sudden you're like, I either can't imagine doing anything else or I never want to do this again. And for me personally, I knew that, this was the career path for me. So after I graduated, I really wanted to stay in Tampa. Honestly, had just signed a lease in Tampa, so really had to at that point, and was doing everything I could to get a job locally. My first full-time job was in sales with the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Then I did my inside sales program with the Tampa Bay Rays and have now been back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers full-time for 3 years in July, actually, as an account executive.
Yeah, congratulations. I love that story. I love the way you told it because we talk so much on this show about, making about our evolution. And so it's really great to hear you share how you came along, how you came up and came along in sports so far. So and we're going to get to the joint business that you both have after we do Jayme's introduction, but I'll give people a sneak peek. It is Jayme and Sky Sports Biz. And so Jayme, you go next, please.
Yeah, I think my story definitely leads to where we came together. So yeah, my name's Jayme Floyd. I'm originally from Sacramento, California. I went to the school at the University of Nevada in Reno. Let's go Pack. In school, I kind of got my feet wet a little bit with a internship with my athletic department. I was a cheerleader there, and my cheer coach was also a marketing and events director. So I interned under her in a marketing and events internship. Great time. And then after college for a bit, I was working in the cheerleading industry. So still like sports adjacent, got to work a lot internationally and learn about sports, outside of the US. So that was a great eye opener as well. But always knew I wanted to get back into the business side of professional sports. So my first role with the team was inside sales with the Denver Nuggets. Absolutely loved it and was promoted internally to an account executive role there as well. And then after about a year there, it was time for my husband and I to relocate, and that was to Tampa. And luckily enough, I was able to, join the Buccaneers in a similar account executive role. After about 2 years there, it was, a time for my passions to change a little bit. And most recently, I took on a marketing and fan engagement position with the team. And, rewind about 3 years ago or 2.5, I don't even know.
Yeah,
2.5 years ago is when I met Sky, when we were on the same team together. And we were highly competitive, which was so great with each other and making sure we were both at the top of our game together when we were in a department. And that's when we came up with the idea to start the Jayme and Sky.
Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. And so folks who are listening, a little bit of additional context on how I know Jayme and Sky. So I had first found, I actually don't know if I told you this, is I first had just been, because I follow things on Instagram, related to the sports business. I knew of you a little bit just from, things that you've been posting. And then it came more to the forefront when Sky got to know you a little bit from afar from the sports business Game Changers mentor program. And then this shows their just, I guess I'd say like gumption or just their, confidence and outgoingness. All of a sudden I was doing something on the SLG Impact Instagram page and I saw that they had put something that we did in the stories or mentioned us in the stories. And I was so flattered. I was like, oh my gosh, to me, that it cut through to what you are doing. And the fact that, you know, you are seeing the people that we have on as people that somehow, you know, resonate with you. I felt honored and grateful. And I reached out right away. I was like, you guys have to get on the show with me. So I think for anybody listening to this, I just can't say, they're a perfect example of when you do, when you put yourself out there, like good things can come from it. So, so just want to give that a little bit. And thank you both so much for, you know, taking that initiative to reach out to me. So talk to us about what sparked this platform that now has what, over 40,000 followers on TikTok. So talk to us about what sparked that.
Yeah, you know, I think there's kind of a couple layers to it, right? Number one, as I'm sure you can relate, and honestly, probably a lot of people listening can relate, we receive questions like on LinkedIn messages constantly, emails and LinkedIn messages asking for advice, you know, to have a call, to learn how you got in your role, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that it kind of increased for us through the pandemic for a few reasons. One, more people were networking. It was just, you know, more downtime. And two, with the Super Bowl and Tom Brady, it did put a lot more attention on our team. So we kind of took the questions that we were getting, as well as both of our just natural need and desire to like be creative, and combine the two, and decided to make a TikTok. And then it kind of just took a whole mind of its own very quickly.
Yeah, it kind of created its own demand, and we built, you know, the community of now 40,000 people. It's, you know, predominantly college age and young professionals, you know, looking to enter the sports business, and then into the industry. It's took a mind of its own.
It's been we started it in March 2021.
So a little over a year.
Okay. So was it more, I'm curious if it was more something that was like sparked out of, again, like I know you said that you were getting questions and people were reaching out to you. Did you feel that you had received, or you found resources as you both were coming up and you were like, oh, I want to do more of this to give to other people and to impact other people positively? Or was it like, gosh, there's almost like a hole in the market here. There's no resource for people who are trying to do what we just did?
I think it's option B there. I think it was definitely, we saw that there, first of all, on TikTok alone, there was no one, you know, geared towards that. And a lot of sources, you know, online, different websites are more geared to folks already in the industry, not really anyone who's trying to break in. So that's where it came from for sure.
Yeah, we had like the idea sparked, you know, beginning of the off season, and it kind of took a bit before we were like, we're going to do it. We were talking about it a little bit, and then started doing like some research on TikTok just to see what was in the sports biz hashtag, you know, what are people posting? And there were a few creators who were kind of trying to, you know, share resources, but
it wasn't their focus.
And we wanted to like be very TikTok-y and really fun about it, trendy, you know, trendy. So it kind of
a little bit more digestible for the next generation.
Yeah. And obviously accessible. So the whole point was to just be accessible, digestible, and for us to actually have fun while we were doing it. And I think we've definitely
and it's more so people can learn from like our mistakes or learn from things we did well, or so we
love talking about our mistakes.
Yeah. And we went through it a bit more recently too. So it's a bit more relatable.
Yeah. I think that helps so much because people don't feel you're preaching at them. I think that relatability, that authenticity is so important. And I think especially as you are both, you know, that next generation of leaders. And I think you followed our platform enough to know how much I just truly believe in the value of authentic leadership. It just can cut through in a way where you're not, I just think it resonates a lot with people. It's easy for people to want to be a part of. Yeah. So when we spoke last time, I know we talked a bit about networking. And as you both had shared in your own journeys, I've heard you talk about relocation or some moving. And so I'd love for you can break it up or you can both answer however you'd like to, but I'd love your thoughts on the value of networking, you know, how you've really learned and anything that you could share about networking. And then also the importance of being open to relocation as a part of your journey when you're, especially when you're getting into the industry and beyond, I have to say.
Go part one, I'll go
yeah,
part two.
exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Tag team right here. We're really good at that.
So both of us will say that networking has been a huge part of us coming up in our career. I mean, both of us got our jobs with our current team as a result of having a relationship, at least a little bit ahead of a job being posted. So, you know, we can both attest to like our, you know, most recent hire, like legitimately coming, you know, from the power of networking.
Yeah.
I think that networking, intentional networking, is one of the most important like soft skills that you can master, or I don't think you can master it, but that you can have.
Practice.
Practice, thank you. And probably not even just in the sports industry, but pretty much probably in life in general.
I think in the sports industry, it is a bit of a smaller industry.
You think
as well,
that it's
too.
more prominent in the sports industry? Probably.
I think people are a bit more open to it. Like I know me personally, I network in my new role. I'm reaching out to people at other teams in the similar role because I need to learn more about it. So that's my intentional networking right now. So I know it's a wider practice, I'd say.
Yeah. I think that just knowing people in this industry, obviously, you know, like Jayme said, it's such a small industry
and everyone knows someone.
Everyone
in a
knows
city
someone.
or a different team.
So people always say, you know, once you're not necessarily like once you get your foot in the door, but once you start knowing people and you start growing your network, you're always going to have people to like champion you for like the next introduction. And I find myself in like a constant, never ending like spiral of being introduced to someone else because I have, you know, a call on my calendar with someone that I'm networking with or I'm having a first conversation with. At the end of the call, they're probably going to recommend me to speak to someone else. And it's this beautiful, like never ending, like domino effect of networking. And I also want to say, of course, like we know that networking needs to be mutually beneficial. And it's really important that it's kind of a give and take. And being able to like nurture those relationships, like as you grow in your career is super important too.
Yeah, I think it's a really great point because I think that, you know, you hear about networking when you first start coming up, and in the beginning, I think back to when I was, and you know, I really didn't know anybody, so I was literally sitting. I remember because I worked in the NBDL, which is now the G League. Literally, like sitting, staring at the cinder block walls, calling people at other teams, trying to meet people and talk to people. And then when I was like, okay, I want to get to an NBA team, I just started picking up the phone and calling the head of marketing at every single team. And so I think sometimes we think along the way that it's just that first call, but it's so important. Some of the things that you were just talking about like nurture that relationship and providing value when you come to the call too, so that it's not just, you're not treating it transactional, like this is one call and I'll never speak to them again. I mean, some of my contacts that I'm still friends with are people that I worked with or around or met at that point, like however many 20 years ago. So those are people that you really do build a relationship with over time. And it does, you know, require that nurturing. So I think that's a great point.
And like, it doesn't have to be like a total mentor-mentee relationship. Of course, like I'm sure we all have some of those, but just like having just people that you're kind of coming up alongside too. It's all, gotta love a big network.
No, it's really true. And even the part you said about like, when you talk to one person, they introduce you to the next. One of my, my first boss and mentor, Felicia Hall Allen, she said to me early on, like, you just literally make your list of 10 people, and then each person you want to try to get someone to get them to introduce you to somebody else. And so that it just, you know, multiplies, but you have to put in the work and be, you know, sincere. And I loved how you said like the intentional networking, I think matters a lot. So I came up and moved around a lot. So I went from Detroit. Well, went to the University of Michigan. So I was like born and raised there. But then I did Detroit, the WNBA season. The Shock doesn't even exist anymore. It's so sad. And then the Storm. So I was out in Seattle, and then did North Carolina and then New Jersey with the Nets. And so it was a lot of moving for opportunity. And that was my philosophy. It was like, have job, will travel. And so, you know, I know you both talked about some movement that you've already done. So, you know, Jayme, I'd love to hear your thoughts about relocation, and a bit of like, how do you make that work?
Yeah, I mean, I personally love to move. I didn't move, like, fun fact about my family, my parents are still in the same home I grew up in for 30 years. And then I'm the complete opposite. So like I went away for school. I lived overseas a little bit after school. And now I lived in Denver and Tampa. So I've bounced around quite a bit and plan to keep doing so. But a little bit more about, I think in the industry specifically, it is important when you're like looking to, I mean, obviously you advance your career, you know, by moving around.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I'm sorry, what was the rest of the question?
No, I just think like, so when I was starting out, I didn't realize that was a part of moving along in the industry and the importance of it, but also like all of a sudden you find yourself in Tampa, or a new place. You know, I was like, I found myself in the mountains of North Carolina early in my career and didn't know a soul. So I'm just curious about how, you know, what's it like? How, you know, what do you share with people about not only the importance of it, but how do you actually sort of acclimate, and, you know, does the team help with that?
How do you build a new home?
Yeah.
I don't know if the team necessarily always helps with that. I think that's something you have to do on your own.
Nice.
And it does kind of bridge the gap with the whole networking piece. You have to be intentional. And I always say, be patient with yourself too. When people ask me like, what should I do when I'm thinking about moving? You're not going to feel at home in a new city, you know, right away. It's going to take some time. For me, it probably took about like 6 to 8 months here in Tampa. I had really had a tribe in Denver, both professionally and personally. And I was very comfortable there. And then all of a sudden I was very uncomfortable in a completely new place. I couldn't go hiking with my dogs, and I had no friends.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, you meet people at work. So luckily, if you're relocating with your team, like for me, I got to meet Skylar. We had shared interests. We were both, you know, pretty ambitious, I think you could say. So you start with places that you work, and then you find other interests as well. I think it's important to find people who are you like. And so networking doesn't always have to be within your industry. It could be at your gym. It can be at the dog park. You know, with the intent to make friends as well. Yeah. That's really what networking is at the end of the day. It's not always a super professional chat. It's hey, where are you from? Where'd you go to school? You know, you're having those surface level conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important because, again, even when you said the team doesn't do it for you, these are really great things for people to hear, whether it's someone who's young and they're coming up, or there's someone more senior, because we have to keep in mind what someone new to the industry may have a certain expectation or belief or thought. And there is an element of being proactive, making it your home, but also even when you talked about like, you know, making friends outside in a new environment, making friends outside of the, call it arena, the office, like, especially in sports, because it's such a 24/7 job. I found myself when I was coming up, I just lived and breathed and slept my job. And so
that's the lucky part about working in sports. Everyone is typically like-minded. A lot of people are misplaced as well too. They're not in their hometown. So you're like-minded, you're all away from home. So it is very easy to make friends in the workplace. That is one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I talked a little bit, I just mentioned a minute ago about like the audience that's listening. And we do have people who are that, you know, more of in your generation and more of in my generation, and somewhere all around. And so I really actually am super curious of people who are next gen leaders who come on the show. Is there anything that you wish that the generation ahead of you, I'll call it, older than you wish that we knew, or you wish that we would keep in mind with respect to, you know, your generation coming up?
I think a big one for both of us is embracing social media. It's a norm now. It's just like TV. It's our day-to-day lives. It's like a car. It's a part of who we are at this point. And it's not some foreign unknown thing. It's here and it's here to stay. So, and it's a great thing. It's positive. It's what's connected us with 40,000 other individuals who are like-minded. You know what I mean? So I think not only don't be afraid of it, but also embrace it. I think those are,
you know, personally and professionally. So like when,
both
when it comes to, you know, the next generation of people becoming, let's say you know, are bringing on new staff and they're in that, you know, younger generation who literally like post everything that they do, which can kind of be scary, probably as a hiring manager, to like look at this generation of people who like post, I mean,
getting their Starbucks.
Yeah. What they had for breakfast that morning.
Yeah.
What their cubicle looks like, what their, you know, work responsibilities look like because people are just so invested and just like we love sharing. And also kind of in the business, I think it's really exciting now that there's this entire new realm of the world that we can market and we can sell and we can communicate and we can grow fans and all these things that obviously teams are being way more intentional about, you know, capitalizing on. But I feel like there's just so much still like untapped potential in social media, whether that's in ticket sales and like social selling or just social media marketing or on the fan engagement side, all these things that, I mean,
like
just
the
so
NHL
much
with like their influencer marketing that they're pushing. I think that's a great initiative.
Yeah. MLB with the TikTok.
Oh yeah.
Yep. There's like these things that you see are like slowly rolling out and they're like, oh, that makes so much sense for this next generation of people. But I can imagine that coming, you know, up from the top, unless you have, you know, sons and daughters who are in that age range, or you're really, really communicative with your newer, younger employees, like how would you know that this is even something that we can do? So yeah, I think that 100% it's really all about social media. Words are good. Social media.
No, it's actually really interesting when you're talking about it's making me think of, say if it, you know, I had a peer that was not involved in social media at all, it must seem to, especially like for you all or for them, like they're worlds apart, like such a divide of just how people are existing. I actually was late to get on social media. It was a long time ago, but I finally got over to it. And part of the reason why is because I started working on the agency side from the team side. And I just realized how much I needed to observe the way that people were operating and communicating, and brands as well, you know, companies. And I have 4 nieces. Well, I have actually more than that, but and I sometimes I like check out what they're posting, and it's more for me just to understand them, like the language they're using. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know, that I Google some sort of word they said, but it's so I can hear you. I do think it's really important. It's just, you have to embrace it or you're going to be left behind, which is interesting because usually it's not always that way. It's like, someone who's like, oh, older and knows better, where you're like, actually, if you're older, you need to get on board or you're going to get left behind.
And I mean, I can understand how it can be like scary because it's the unknown, right? But like at the end of the day, or like, something like with our TikTok, like that may seem like kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Foreign? I don't
know. Yeah, foreign, like
to
hiring managers or I don't know, whoever is like looking at it as like, what are these girls doing?
Yeah.
But all we're really doing is just like sharing information.
Well, I think
rather than like a direct message on LinkedIn, it's to everyone on TikTok.
Yeah. I there's trends of it changing so much. Like I saw something a few months ago about people using TikTok for their like applying for jobs. Like that's like their version of a resume. And I was like, wow. I mean, that's just, it's just like, it's mind blowing how far it's taken it. It's no longer just the dancing app or, dancing platform. It's so much more. And I mean, that's like, for people who aren't paying attention to it, they're, like I wasn't paying that much attention to it. And then for me to be like, oh, wow, people are using it in such, I don't know, different ways, is really important. I'm actually curious, when you decided that you wanted to create the platform, did either one of you feel nervous about putting yourself out there? Not meaning like, I know that what you're saying is based on your experiences and things like that. But I'll say, for example, when I started this platform, I was like, I didn't want to put my face out there. I was nervous about putting myself out. So I'm just curious, was that at all, call it intimidating or inhibiting to you at all? Or is it just that you're so comfortable with social media, it didn't even dawn on you?
Well, TikTok was newer to both of us to create on. So it was the first time we had both created on TikTok. So I will say we did it together. So that always helps to have a friend. And we learned the platform together. So if you scroll back to our original videos, it's a bit more scripted. It's a bit more showmanship. And now when you watch our videos, it's like you're talking to a friend because it's natural to us now.
Yeah.
So I think we were probably nervous for that part, but
no, because we knew people were going to see it.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what the perception was going to be like right off the bat. Definitely.
Yeah.
But like
once it started growing more, that's when I think we probably got more nervous.
Yeah, a little bit.
When you're wait, followers, it doesn't matter.
That first
people are actually paying attention.
Like, yeah.
And the video where we're sweating went the most viral. We're sweating out in the stadium. Got like over 1 million views. So maybe that makes you more nervous.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I have a content creator background, like middle school, high school, college. I made YouTube videos. So and that was something I did on my own. So like I was fully comfortable talking to a camera and like creating content, but I know that I still get nervous to post things because I want to like uphold, you know, like keep us up.
Yeah. Ironically enough, I'm the one who's a bit more ballsy now with what we post.
I love it.
I'm always like, are you sure? Are you sure?
No, I love it. I mean, there is a degree to which that's about the authenticity of it, I think, is you just have to, well, I've learned, it's just like, do it, put it out there. And it's not always going to be perfect. And sometimes it's going to be better than you even imagined it could be. So just go. Also, there's a ton of people out there doing it. So why not, you know, join. So no, that's really great to hear. I appreciate you both sharing that so much. Okay. So we've had a really great call. We're going to wrap it up, but I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here before we have our final question. And I'm super curious about your favorite sports team or players. I'll stop there. I won't ask you multiple questions. So I would love to hear from both of you. Do you have a favorite team and or players?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Tampa.
We're both hometown girls. So
diehard Washington Capitals fan. That's it.
Nice.
But I that was the first team that I like actually cared enough to, you know, do research on players and like learn stats and understand the way that the game works. And that was really what made me fall in love with this really sports itself.
That's true. Yeah. I have a favorite player that now that she said that, what made her really like dive into the sport itself. When I was in college and Rob Gronkowski started in the league, he's who actually got me to learn about NFL a little bit more in depth. So we'll give him props. My current favorite players is definitely and then my favorite team, if anyone is an NBA fan, is going to laugh at me. It's the Sacramento Kings. I'm born and raised in Sacramento. We don't have any other professional sports teams. And when I was growing up, they were fantastic. So I still live in the glory days as we were Sacramento Kings fans with my Chris Webber and Pedro Stojakovic jerseys.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I'm actually going to pause for a second because I've noticed something throughout our conversation that you both have referenced, both on the professional side, but also in more of the personal side. And it's the amount of research and information gathering that you do to help to inform yourselves, to make yourselves. I think it contributes to your evolution. It's what got you, you know, as you both shared, like got you really into sports as a fan. You talked about how you've done that. It's actually helped propelled you in your careers, but then also with this entrepreneurial pursuit that you have. And so I really want to commend it. I think it's pretty amazing for everybody who's listening, no matter what our sort of stages, our careers are, because I think I talk a lot about being a curious leader. I think it's so helpful for us to, you know, again, like reach new heights for ourselves, and also to be able to help other people. So Okay, so now I'm going to go to my next one, which is more on the professional side. So are there any leaders who really inspire you, who you either, or you just really sort of, you know, I guess I was going to say jive with, I sound like such an old person. I know, you know, who you either know or you would like to know.
Shoot. I mean, would love to know Kim Ng, first female GM in any of the big four. But you definitely have more that you're a little bit more connected with.
Yeah, my Deanna Witter is someone I look up to very, very much. She's the CRO for the Houston Dynamo and Dash. And I was originally connected to her by my chief ticketing officer, Ben Milsom, made the connection through when she became one of the game changers. And I have followed that list like a little puppy dog for the last 3 years. And then of course had the honor of being a part of the mentorship program this year. So gotta give Kelly Hine, my mentor, a big shout out. And then who do I want to meet? No, I have to think on that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
no, I told you this before.
You would want to meet the owner of the Savannah Bananas.
This is true.
What is this?
The Savannah Bananas.
Why do I not know what this is?
They're a summer league team, but they also do like a touring series. You haven't heard of the Savannah Bananas?
I don't know.
Oh, they're big on TikTok.
After this, you're gonna do some research.
I'm gonna be a curious leader.
I'm so excited for you to learn about this
because they are
Savannah Bananas. Okay,
they are the epitome of the kings and queens of like game presentation and fan interaction engagement. Granted,
and like pushing the envelope.
Yeah, very different from a pro sports team. Yes. Like there's no comparison of like what the capabilities are.
You can learn. Everybody. I mean, there's so much that gets borrowed and adapted, as I call, that gets done in the minor leagues, which is great. So no, it's really great to hear. I mean, I think you both know that part of this platform is about connecting people, is about helping, you know, I really wanted to, you know, elevate the voices of diverse, authentic leaders and, you know, really build this community. So, you know, if anybody is listening to this and you want to get to know Jayme and Sky, please reach out and, you know, and we can help bring some people together. And so I shared with you earlier, I like to wrap these shows with some key takeaways. And my team that I lead at CMD Agency, where I'm in the office today, so in Portland, Oregon, hence my background that's not usual. I'm notorious for next steps and key takeaways after meetings and such. So I come by it honestly, folks. But would love for you to share if there's maybe, it doesn't matter the number, but like 3 to 5 key tips. Cause I usually like to end this with like, what do you want people to take away from this episode? And given that your platform is so much about positively impacting people through, you know, the tips and things that you can share to help people's career journeys in sports, I would love if you could share some of those with us.
We're going to start with like a key takeaway each. Just kind of kick it off.
Sure. Yeah. Go for it.
Something that we've been talking about a lot recently is how everyone is always still figuring it out. And I think that especially when you're younger in your career, you think that everybody has everything figured out and everyone has it together all the time. And you look around and you're like, okay, they're so much more put together than I am. And they know how things work. And then you learn that nobody really does. And it's really,
everyone's figuring it out.
Yeah. It's really like humbling stuff.
Reliever.
Yeah. It's a relieving experience to like kind of peel back those rose-colored glasses and be like, all right, like we're all in this together. And I think that's like really important for the younger generation, specifically to be aware of, because like, I promise you, like, I don't know what I'm doing half the time, but we're in this, you know?
And when you realize that, then it does make it easier to ask those questions and to learn more. It makes that learning experience a bit more comfortable. I don't know, at least in my personal experience so far.
And you know, something that we were speaking about this morning is really about kind of teetering from, you know, off of that is like, you can't be afraid to ask the questions, network, you know, use and use any connection that you do have to people and take advantage of that, you know? That's a big tip, because like, it's really like, what do you have to lose at that point, you know?
Yeah, that's a great one. I will say, my husband, when I have,
I kind of just went for it.
Well, I have moments where I'm, my husband actually says to me, he's like, Shauna, everybody's figuring it out. Nobody has all the answers. I'm like, oh, right. Because so it doesn't matter where you are in your career. I think that is a fantastic tip. So, all right. So that was one.
That's one. Okay. Let's go through some other ones. I think something we like to share. We always say we like to talk in such a unit time. It's because we're always like
share brain.
Together. Yeah. It's really great synergy when we are together.
Yeah.
No, but something that we like to share to like followers is everyone's journeys do look different. Like some people are going to follow this exact track. Like for instance, in sales, they're going to go from inside sales to account executive to a manager, director, a VP, chief ticket officer. So there's a track, but then there's some people like where I'm at right now, where I just went hard left and it's different. Or some people may leave sports, or some people may come into sports at the VP level. So kind of being open to the journey, and like, it always comes back to like, just being able to like absorb, whatever you can from whatever experience. Everything's kind of coming full circle with every piece of advice.
Yeah.
I feel like it's all going to come back and touch on something else, like always being open to learning. And,
right.
Yeah.
And kind of going off of that and what we were talking about with curiosity, do the research, right? Like whether that's preparing for an interview or a networking call and doing your research on the person that you're about to speak with, or that's doing research on what other resources there are out there for finding jobs to apply for, and finding, what should I be saying in a follow-up email, things like that. Preparedness is something that you can learn,
Yeah. So wait a second. I saw one of your videos recently where you were talking about the importance of when you communicate with someone, like the call, the email, the touch points.
Yeah.
So talk about that. I love this.
I think we're both pretty lucky that we like started our careers in sales, because sales teaches you great job finding skills, for lack of a better term, because it's the sales process essentially.
But you're selling yourself, right?
It's something I came full circle on. Like I was like, oh wait, I'm literally doing my sales process while applying for this job. This is so funny. And that's now what we're sharing with other people. But it's kind of that touch point. So you initially reach out for a phone call, for a networking call, and then you send an email or a thank you note after that call. And then, you get an interview, you send the thank you note after the interview. It's kind of like following
a cadence, a touch point cadence.
And it goes the same thing for just networking as well, not just for job hunting. So it's, it's definitely our biggest piece of advice that we get, because I think that's the best way to get an interview as well too. I always like to remind people, hundreds of people are applying for whatever job it is, because it's a sports job. And so only a couple people are going to be sending that email after they apply. Yeah. And you're going to get an interview if you're sending that email, because you're going to instantly stand out. Yeah.
I think it's so important. I mean, because I'm interviewing people all the time, and I'm no longer, CMD is a creative agency, so it's not in the eye of sports, but it's still those basic skills of communication to help you stand out. It's so important. It is that first email, it's that call, then it's the follow-up to it. And it's also, there's an element of it too, of timeliness is helpful. So if you don't send it, if I interview someone and I don't get any response at all, or I don't get a response for like a week, I'm sitting there going like, they must not want the job that bad, or they may not even have, like, because the reality is the interview process is you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. So I'm kind of like, okay. So I think I love that video that you did about that, because I just thought it's so true. Again, no matter what age, where stage you are in your career, I think these are things that are important, and it's so great to instill that in people, especially in the beginning of their careers.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we've realized that people just don't know, and just for lack of,
feel like they're in the wrong for wanting to do it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's inappropriate to reach out after, like they don't want to hear from me. And it's like, no, trust me, they want to hear from you. Yeah. They might not reply, but they want to.
Yeah. They want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's so true. And I think, I think some people talk about this, but I wish people would talk more about it, is how much like I get excited. Like I said, when we started this, I literally saw you post something that we put out, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. So I'm actually excited by someone reaching out to me. Again, it doesn't matter what generation they come from, but it also helped to know that you're coming up and you're looking at something that I'm doing and you're excited about it. So I think to your point, if someone's feeling like, oh, they don't want to hear from me, it doesn't matter what generation you are. People do want to hear from other people. So, I think you both are absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful to know you. Thank you for.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show. And I'm going to continue to, support you and count me as, your corner and encourager. So welcome to the community that we're building here at SLG Impact.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're happy to be here.